All right, so today we're diving into what I think is one of the most exciting shifts happening in AI right now. We're going to move beyond just, simple conversation and into a world of real action. This is all about AI agents, from chat to action.
Okay, let's just start with this one core idea, because this quote, it just nails it. We're all pretty used to AI that can chat, right? You ask it stuff, it answers. But agents, oh, they are a whole different ballgame. They don't just talk, they do things.
So let's really break that down. Think about a chatbot. It's passive, right? You ask a question, you get an answer. End of story. An AI agent, though, is active. You don't just ask it something, you give it a goal, and it actually works to complete that task. It's like the difference between asking for a recipe versus having an assistant who literally goes out and buys the ingredients for you. Big difference.
So how do they actually do it? I mean, how does an agent go from just a goal to a task that's actually, finished? Well, it all comes down to this core operational loop. Let's pop the hood and see how this thing thinks.
It's basically this continuous four-step cycle. First, it plans, then it acts. It actually uses a tool to do something. And right after it acts, it checks the result. Hey, did that work? And finally, based on what it finds out, it just repeats the whole process, learning and tweaking its plan until the goal is met. It's this constant loop: plan, act, check, learn, over and over.
So the first piece of this whole puzzle is what we call the planner. And honestly, the best way to think about it is it's the agent's brain. It takes your big, high-level goal, something like find me the best flight to London, and it's the part that breaks that down into a logical, step-by-step strategy.
Okay, so a plan is great, but how does it actually become reality? Well, that's where tools come in. If the planner is the brain, then the tools, they're the agent's hands. These are the actual specific actions it can take, like searching the web, or pinging a database, or even sending an email. And it's simple, really. The more tools an agent has, the more capable it is.
Now, obviously, for any kind of complex task, you're going to need context, and that's exactly where memory comes in. This is what lets the agent remember what it's already done, what worked, what didn't. Without memory, it would be like trying to follow a recipe, but forgetting each step the second after you did it. It's a non-starter. So yeah, memory is what makes these complex, multi-step jobs even possible.
But with all this power to act, you absolutely need control, right? And that is the job of the guardrails. Think of these as the built-in safety rules, the policies that keep the agent on the straight and narrow. They make sure it only takes actions you've approved, that it doesn't go and spend a bunch of money, and that it stays within the boundaries you've set. This part is so critical for being able to trust these things. Okay, so one agent that can plan, act, and learn. That's already pretty powerful. But what happens when you get a bunch of them, each with their own special skill to work together as a team? Well, that's when you get what's called a multi-agent system. And you can pretty much just think of it as an AI project team.
And this team structure, it's actually super intuitive. You could have one agent that's the planner, right? Its whole job is to create the big picture strategy. Then you have an executor agent that takes that plan and just gets to work, using its tools to handle the nitty-gritty steps. And then you could have a QA agent, whose only job is to review all the work and make sure it's accurate. It's just like building a human team, but with AI.
Okay, this all sounds great in theory, but where is this stuff actually making a difference today? Like right now. Let's get into some practical, real-world examples.
Look, agents are already making a huge impact on how businesses run. I'm talking major efficiency gains. In customer support, they're triaging tickets and just slashing response times. For sales teams, they're doing automated research, speeding up lead gen like crazy. In finance, they're streamlining things like accounts payable, and they can totally automate pulling together business reports. And let me be clear, this isn't science fiction. This is happening right now.
Let's make that even more real. Just picture this for a second. A customer submits a new support ticket. Instantly, an AI agent reads it, dives into the knowledge base, figures out the root problem, and then drafts a perfect technical response. That draft then pops up for a human engineer who just needs to give it a quick look and hit send. Think about the time that saves. It's a massive difference.
Okay, now for anyone out there who's actually thinking about building with agents, I know the biggest question on your mind is probably, how on earth do I do this safely? And you're right to ask. You don't just flip a switch and let it loose. There's a really clear step-by-step way to do this that builds trust and makes sure you get good results.
And this three-step plan is really the key. First, you start in what's called shadow mode.
Here, the agent just watches and drafts actions, but it doesn't do anything. Then you graduate to supervised mode. Now it can act, but only if a human approves every single step. And then finally, once you're really confident in its performance, you can give it limited autonomy, letting it work on its own, but always, always within those strict guardrails we mentioned earlier.
So the main takeaway here is pretty simple. Always start with a human in the loop, no exceptions. You begin with really low-risk tasks, where the agent is just suggesting things or drafting replies. Then, as you start to trust its quality and reliability, you can slowly, gradually expand what it's allowed to do. It really is that classic crawl, walk, run approach.
And that pretty much brings us to the end. We've covered what an agent is, how it thinks, and even how you can start to use one safely. So I'll just leave you with one final question to chew on. Thinking about your own day, your own work, what's the first, boring, repetitive task you would love to delegate to an AI agent? Because the possibilities here, they're really just starting to open up. Thanks so much for tuning in.